What is up, everybody? This is another episode of the Chug Life Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Vega, and today we are going to be discussing some rather not fun stuff. So, this is going to be another episode that I'll advise everybody to not listen around your kids. And without anything else being added, I'm just going to quickly let you guys simmer in the new year in 2026. How interesting is that, huh? Well, the topic today, as you guys are well aware, is Venezuela. And specifically the fact that it's not being spoken about in the media. And more specifically, the fact that it's not being spoken that we've actually started doing land attacks. And that stuff's being blown up. And it's a big problem. You know, this is something that eventually is going to go hot, and it's something that eventually a lot of people are going to be hurt. So, to begin with, we're going to take a look at some really interesting pieces of evidence that have been found in sites in Venezuela. And we're talking about missile fragments to specifically tell us that there was an attack that happened and targets were hit in Venezuela. So, to begin with, we have the fun aspect of missile fragments, as I mentioned, which is a really, I want to say, easy way to be able to identify what missile it is. And you may be able to get a general idea, but there's so many different types of motors and different compartments that are just interchanged throughout most of these missile systems. So it's not like it's always a consistent motor for that specific missile is always used. It's something that comes as part of the military industrial complex is this interchangeability of equipment to be able to facilitate use like this, readily available type stuff. So with that being said, there is some, general, like we know it's going to be an ATGM, most likely. Some folks are leaning towards Hellfire. Some folks are leaning to a JAGM. It's very much up in the air is what we'll just call it here to make things a lot easier on my brain. But the reason why this is important is we know that we're the only ones that have this. There is nobody else that's going to be operating over Venezuela. And these are very unique to us. So from those things, we can already start coming to a conclusion that to every extent possible, we are at war with Venezuela. And we'll just keep adding some general facts here to kind of back up that conclusion, but you'll come to it very quickly. I think once you start seeing, okay, well we have this stuff there that can fire these missiles, and a lot of it, quite frankly, we have enough air to blanket Venezuela. And so there's, it's not really like going to be a hotly contested air zone as you would see in areas like Ukraine. And even then, it still has its freedoms because we have stealth technology that can help us, as well as some really nasty seed and dead, plans. So I can see them doing this, is what I'm trying to say. And it absolutely just all adds up with the amount of firepower we have, knowing that the USS Ford is a mere, 355 kilometers from Venezuela. And so right now we're broadcasting to show this map and just to kind of get a general understanding of how far our forward force is. The foremost aspect of our strike package is already there. If something were to go down, it's going to come from these guys. And so to add to all that, we have the troops able to land in Puerto Rico, and I would assume that there's probably a very large convoy where this carrier group is. And we have a handful of landing carriers that can just land a boatload of troops. And I don't see, a better way for them to do it would be a complete blackout of the internet, which has generally shocked me because I had assumed initially that's what had happened. You just kind of blacked out general information from Venezuela and nobody ever would find out or know that this happened until Maduro is running out of Venezuela. And so, we're going to kind of start thinking a little bit further into this here. And I just kind of want you guys to follow this very quickly. But it's more so the idea of the bullshit that is coming along with putting kind of this face forward of we're not doing strikes. And then he just comes out and says it, very nonchalantly. And so we more or less just are getting a deluge of bullshit in regards to how this war on Venezuela is starting and why. And to begin with, I don't believe any of this bullshit about the boats. All right? It doesn't make sense. Let's just be honest here. If there were enough boats to concern a worry like he tries to put across, that these guys are landing in Miami and they're going straight to Massachusetts and all this bullshit, trying to put across like they're putting across hundreds of thousands of tons of fentanyl every year, or millions, just putting so much fake worry on this. And then you have the general idea that it leads to oil. It just kind of smells like, well, what else? If you need a casus belli like this, you really have to lie to everybody that there's narco traffickers and these guys are borderline narco terrorists and it's a gang and they're funded by Colombia and Venezuela and all these guys. We just need to bomb them. Just double strike, triple strike, just absolutely obliterate every single freaking person. No, absolutely not. And by any means should we be bombing these boats just because we think there's drugs on them. That completely shits on the rule of law as a whole. I mean, we break, God, so many different crime laws, just international crime laws. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of torture that we are causing and horror that we have brought to the Caribbean. It's heartbreaking, truly. And unfortunately, my little island, Puerto Rico, is in this very, very deep. As you can see, we house all of these weapons of war, and they're using them. And it's looking to be a really nasty war. And I just really hope that Trump just backs off of this. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pet my cats and enjoy the new year. And I hope you guys do too. Happy New Year, y'all. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk on Venezuela and the possible next Vietnam, I guess. Isn't that freaking crazy? Start the new year bombing Venezuela. I mean, just consider that for a second. Just where we are one day into the new year. Well, see you guys later.